Long time ago, in a land called Kurukshetra, there was a crown prince, Duryodhan, who challenged his cousins, the five Pandavas, to a game of dice. The Pandavas were unaware that these dice that they were going to use were bewitched and they'd only fall in favor of the Kauravas. Yudhishthir, the eldest of the Pandavas, started placing his bets. He bet his elephants, his cattle, then he bet his palaces, his chariots, his horses. He then bet all the silks, money, and jewelry his kingdom had to offer, and he lost them all. Now he was wondering what to do, and then he decided to bet his brothers, the first, the second, the third, and the fourth, and he lost them all. Completely confused, ashamed, and embarrassed, he had nothing left, so he bet himself and lost himself as well. Now he was wondering what comes next. And Duryodhan suggested, why don't you bet your wife, Draupadi? With nothing else to do, the prince decided to bet his wife. He played the dice and lost her as well. Now Duryodhan, the one who owned Draupadi, decided that he wanted her down there in court. He told his brother, Dushasan, to go bring her down. Dushasan stormed up, pulled Draupadi by the hand, and dragged her to court. Draupadi, who was resting in her chambers, couldn't do anything else. Her hair was disheveled completely, her sari was falling, and in this moment of vulnerability, all she could do was pray. Pray to the one person who had stayed by her side in every moment, and that was her friend Krishna. It is said that in this very moment, Krishna is the one who provided her with her never-ending sari while she was being disrobed and kept her safe. Good morning, I am Priyanka, and the story I just told all of you was of the Vastraharan of Draupadi from the Mahabharata. This was the moment where everything changed. This was the moment when a family decided to go to war, a war that almost wiped out an entire generation of the family. Just like this story, the world of Indian mythology is made up of countless characters, complicated plot lines, mythical creatures, and these come together to form thousands of stories. Some people believe that this is a myth, while others believe that it's part of our history. But no matter what you believe in, everyone can agree that this world is one that is visually engaging and has extremely exciting narratives, stories that are being told in our country for generations. As a 6-year-old girl learning to be a Bharatanatyam dancer, I was introduced to these stories very early in life. I got lost in the world of little Krishna, who would steal butter and then get yelled at by his mom. I wanted to be like Hanuman. I wanted to fly up into the sky and be able to go and touch the sun. I wanted to go into war like the brave warriors and slay demons and just save the world. These stories taught me so much about life. They became my emotional guide as well as my fantasy escape when the real world got a bit much. I wanted to figure out a way to keep telling these stories. Stories that taught me about happiness and sadness and joy and honesty and loyalty and just right and wrong. I wanted to figure out a way to make these stories relevant in society today. For this very purpose, I realized that they say it's not just what you say. It's how you say it that matters. I needed a medium to tell these stories, and I realized that the perfect medium exists, a canvas that has transcended time and has found its place in contemporary Indian society today, and that was the sari. And that's how Panchali Katha was born. This is an illustrated representation of the Vastraharan of Draupadi, illustrated scene by scene within the borders of her sari and printed, digitally printed on 12 meters of fabric. This was making it seem visibly endless. So just like in the beginning, when I told you this story, I was the storyteller, the sutradhar. Similarly, this piece makes the person wearing it the sutradhar of this story, who literally and figuratively holds all the threads of this story in their hands. From Panchali Katha, I decided to explore a concept which I chose to call Leela. Leela is a Sanskrit word that loosely translated means divine play. We have the Ram Leela, which pertains to theatre and drama, and we have the Ras Leela, which is essentially dance. My interpretation of the Leela was illustrated mythological stories that were represented on wearable saris. These saris were designed in a way that the story flowed out from the pleats of the sari across the body and then down the pallu. This was done in a way that no part of the story was lost in the pleats or the folds. The pieces that came out as part of this exploration turned out to be pieces of art that could be passed on from generation to generation in a family. And they would literally be passing on stories. I mean, imagine this. My daughter tomorrow could inherit a sari from me that had an illustrated story of little Krishna that her grandmom had told her when she was a kid. This becomes a cross-generational heirloom, and it becomes a thing where you have a memory that made for a good story that becomes a new story and forms a new memory. Human tendency is funny in many ways. When we're presented with something that's unfamiliar, something that disturbs us, something we don't understand, we have a tendency to run in the opposite direction. We're creatures of habit who tend to gravitate towards the more familiar and the known. However, if you're presented with a concept that's new, something that you don't understand or you've not thought of before, but it's presented to you in a manner that you know, that is familiar, or is something that you know already, you've heard it, but it's presented to you in a way that you don't understand, that is new to you, you're more likely to accept it or at least give it a thought. I realized that Indian stories are being told today, and they have been for generations. But the manner in which they've been told or they are being told has stayed largely the same, which has made it the familiar, meeting the familiar, which could unfortunately lead to the mundane. What I felt we needed to do to keep these stories alive was the visual language in which they were represented needed to be such where the generation of today can relate to these characters, or they can find themselves in these characters and invest their time in these characters. I saw that the largest audience that I had for the work that I was choosing to do at this point were little children. Children who are potentially growing up in a world of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, eventually Game of Thrones, and they could very well be introduced to the magical world of Hanuman, Ganesha, and Krishna. Indian stories, like I said, are being told today. But what I was seeking out to do was change the narrative and take these same characters from a more regional cultural Indian audience from our homes and take it onto a more global platform, a more global and contemporary platform, so that tomorrow parents of little children can tell them stories about, like bedtime stories about Saraswati and Lakshmi and Sita, along with Snow White and Cinderella. Uh, these parents, as much as their children, became my audience. And so I started working on a bank of characters that all of us know and love, and stories that we've heard before. But the way they were illustrated was visually engaging and contemporary. And I found myself with this bank, some kind of an ancient treasure chest, making the possibilities of education and storytelling limitless. When I was a little kid, there was this funny little sentence my mom taught me, and it went like, "My very eager monster just sat under 9 planets." I still have to count it on my fingers. But this sentence helped me remember for the rest of my life the 9 planets in our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Thank God I didn't mess up with that one. But what if kids were also taught about Buddha, Shukra, Bhumi, Mangal, Brihaspati, Shani, Indra, Varun, and Yamraj? What if these visual associations were made when children are so young that they're sponges for information? They could make the association with the character, the weapons he was carrying, and the animals that were his mounts. There was another cartoon that I think it was on Cartoon Network called Captain Planet, where kids were taught that when you combine the forces of earth, wind, fire, water, and heart, this superhero Captain Planet is formed who comes to save the world. But what if we're also introduced to Bhumi, Vayu, Agni, Varun, and Akash, the 5 elements that form the earth that we live on? It's said that even the incarnation of Vishnu actually follows Darwin's theory of evolution. Another thing that's said is little children today have shorter attention spans than the generations that came before. This story, Hanuman, the monkey with a golden heart, was originally illustrated as a short story book and published. As the story goes, Ram and Sita want to thank Hanuman for his support during the war and decide to give him a necklace that they're wearing. Hanuman peers into each bead and breaks it apart and he's very disappointed with what has happened. Sita gets really upset and asks him about why he did such a thing, why he hated it so much that he chose to break it apart. And Hanuman tells her that anything in which their presence isn't felt doesn't matter to him. And to further prove his point, he, in a rather gruesome way as it may sound, tears his chest open to reveal that they actually reside within his heart. Now, this story could very well be told as a storybook at night when children are going to bed. However, it was designed as a 9-part GIF that had moving frames, which made this very ancient story shareable only because of technology, where now it was consumable on the go and globally shareable as well, taking this story out into the world. Like we've heard 2 speakers speak today, technology is what revolutionizes our world. Scientific advancement and technological discoveries have brought the world to a point where we couldn't have even imagined it. It's made the unimaginable the reality that we're living in. But this always takes me back to the thought that the myth, tradition, and memory, our memories and the wisdom that they carry within them, actually informs our response to the future. Today, we're all talking about, even within us creatives, there's a constant chatter about Web3, NFTs, AI, like we were speaking about this morning, where we're afraid that it's generating everything on the planet, and there's this side thought that will all of us lose our jobs someday? But I just want to remind you at this point that what we've learned from the past, what we've learned, the ancient wisdom that we have, matters. And we need to figure out a way to keep that alive for the future generations to come. And that's exactly what we try to do at Quirk Box. We tell stories. Quirk Box is a multidisciplinary design studio that has the essence of art, and we craft creative solutions to build brands of the future. Ever since its inception, we have always maintained that we're essentially an art label. We're a team of storytellers, and we're a team of illustrators and visual artists that believe in the power of storytelling. And that's exactly what we've done through every collection, every season. We try to take our audiences on a journey with the narrative that we build. There was one year when we told the story of two lovers, king and queen, boy and girl, man and woman, whoever they mean to you, uniting in an enchanted forest under a shower of arrows shot from the bow of Cupid. There were flowers blooming everywhere. There were deer, swans, peacocks, horses. There was a whole orchestra of musicians celebrating this union. Another time, we took our audiences back to Bombay in the 70s with us. We had buses and rickshaws flying in the sky with hot air balloons. We had taxis and dabbawalas and vintage Bollywood taking over the streets. And obviously, we could not forget the ever-present Bombay pigeons that have made their way even today. But maybe this is exactly how we visualized Bombay in the past. And then there was a time we told the story of the epic tale of the Ramayana, where we had Ram and Sita getting married, Hanuman flying with the Sanjeevani mountain, the Great War, and how Lanka burned down. Through the narrative that we built, we tried to tell all these stories. At Quirk Box, what we've tried to do all this while is tell these stories. And by wearing this art, all of you have become walking art galleries of the work that we do. There is a certain sense of responsibility that lies on our shoulders today to take the wisdom from the past and help it inform the future. We're never so far ahead in time where wisdom from the past can't inform our future, and we're never so far ahead that we don't retain an essence of the past. So this is the journey that I am on in my small way to help keep the stories that matter to me alive. The only thing I want to leave all of you with is how are you going to choose to tell the stories that matter to you? Thank you.